You paid their bills for years, but you're not a real son. Only your brother, the footballer, deserves the inheritance. So I walked away. Years later, when he went broke, they came begging. But I always knew I wasn't the favorite. From the time we were kids, it was obvious. My younger brother Daniel was the golden child. He was the one our father bragged about, the one who could do no wrong. Even when we were little, it was clear that Daniel had something I never did, our parents' admiration. And it only got worse when he started playing football. Our dad had always dreamed of having an athlete in the family. He had played a bit in high school before an injury took him out, and ever since then, he saw it as his life's mission to raise a football star. That's why, when Daniel showed an interest in the sport, my dad poured everything into him: coaches, private lessons, new gear every season. Meanwhile, I was the one working after school to help pay the bills. I never complained. I worked, I helped, and when I started my own family, I made sure my wife and kids never struggled the way I did. I worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, to make sure we had what we needed. And not just us. I sent money to my parents every month, covering part of their mortgage, paying for their groceries. I never asked for anything in return, but they still treated me like I was nothing. At family dinners, my father would go on and on about Daniel's career, even though he wasn't playing for a big team. It didn't matter. He was a football player, and in my father's eyes, that made him special. His kids went to the best schools, had the best clothes, and were always showered with praise. My children? It was like they didn't exist. One night, my daughter tried to tell my parents about her academic competition win. She had worked so hard, beating out hundreds of kids, and she was glowing with pride. But before she could even finish her sentence, my father turned to Daniel's son and said, "So, how's football going? Any new matches coming up?" She was crushed. I saw the way her face fell, how she sat back in her chair and just stirred her food in silence. And something inside me snapped. I had spent years trying to earn their respect, sacrificing my time, my money, my energy, and for what? To be treated like I was invisible? Like my kids didn't matter? And then, my grandfather, who had been sitting quietly all night, leaned back and said the words that sealed everything for me. "My legacy," he said, swirling his glass of whiskey, "will only go to the part of the family that deserves it. A name like ours shouldn't be wasted on a nobody." He turned to me then, smiling in that cold, dismissive way. "You work, sure. But what will people remember about you? A simple job? A boring life?" And then he said it. "You don't deserve our name." The table fell silent. I felt my wife's hand tighten around mine under the table. I looked at my kids, at the way my daughter's lip trembled, at the way my son stared down at his plate, too hurt to even look up. I should have been used to it by now, being overlooked, dismissed, treated like I was just a worker and not a son. But when my grandfather looked me in the eye and told me I wasn't worthy of our family name, something inside me cracked. But let's go back to where it all started. While Daniel practiced on the field, I was unloading boxes at the grocery store after school, never allowed to dream because I had to survive. When I got older and landed a stable job, my parents didn't congratulate me. They didn't tell me they were proud. They just saw me as their personal safety net. Every raise I got wasn't something to celebrate. It was just a sign that I could now send them more money. "You're our son," my mother would say. "Family helps each other." It sounded noble, except help only when in one direction, me supporting them. Every month, I sent money home, covering bills, buying groceries, even bailing Daniel out when he needed help. They never thanked me. It was just expected. Daniel, by the way, never really worked. He played for a third-rate football club that barely paid him enough to survive, but in my father's eyes, he was a hero. When Daniel needed a new car, guess who paid for it? Me. When his wife had a baby and they needed a bigger apartment, who covered part of the rent? Me. I kept telling myself that I was doing it for the family, but the truth was, they were just using me. The worst part was family dinners. My grandfather always talked about the legacy of our family name and how only the worthy ones would inherit anything. He would turn to Daniel's kids and say, "Now these are real grandchildren. They're in the best schools, they have a bright future. And my kids?" He never even acknowledged them. One night, my daughter, glowing with pride, announced her victory in an academic competition. But before she could finish, my father turned away, asking Daniel's son, "So, how's football? Any big games coming up?" The light in her eyes dimmed, and she fell silent. I clenched my jaw and said nothing. I had long accepted that I would never be good enough for them. But seeing them ignore my children? That was different. And then, the final straw. My grandfather swirled his whiskey and smirked. The family name belongs to those who elevate it, not to those who waste their lives. And then he smiled at me and added, "You work, sure. But what will people remember about you? A simple job? A boring life? You won't leave a mark on this world." And then, the final words that pushed me over the edge. "You don't deserve our name." The table went silent. I looked at my parents. And the worst part? They didn't disagree. That night, I barely slept. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my grandfather's words repeating over and over in my head. "You don't deserve our name." It wasn't just what he said, it was the fact that no one at the table had defended me. Not my mother, not my father, not even my brother. After everything I had done for them, years of sacrifice, time, money, energy, all for what? To be ignored? Used? I had spent my entire life working, sacrificing, giving, and what did I get in return? Nothing. Not a single word of appreciation. Not a single moment of recognition. They didn't even respect me enough to pretend I mattered. I thought about my kids, how my daughter had been so proud to share her achievement, only to be ignored like she was invisible. I thought about my son, who barely spoke at family gatherings anymore because he knew no one would listen. They weren't just disrespecting me. They were disrespecting my children. And I was done letting it happen. The next morning, I made a decision. I wasn't going to send them another dollar. For years, I had helped them without hesitation. I paid for my parents' groceries, covered their bills, and even gave Daniel money whenever he needed it. But not anymore. I didn't tell them right away. I wanted them to feel it. At first, they didn't even notice. The first month passed without a single comment. I figured they assumed I had just forgotten or that I'd send double next time. Then the phone calls started. The first was from my mother. "Hey, sweetheart," she said, her voice sugary sweet, too sweet. "I think there was a mistake with the bank. We didn't get your usual deposit this month." I took a deep breath. "There was no mistake, Mom. I'm not sending money anymore." Silence. Then, a forced chuckle. "Oh, come on, don't be silly. We all help each other in this family." "No, Mom," I said firmly. "I help you. None of you have ever helped me." Her voice turned cold instantly. "Is this about what your grandfather said? Don't be so sensitive. He's old-fashioned. You know how he is." "I don't care," I said. "You sat there and let him say it. You didn't defend me. You didn't even try." She huffed. "So you're punishing us by withholding money? How childish." I let out a humorless laugh. "I'm not punishing anyone. I'm just done being used." She started to say something else, but I hung up before she could. 2 days later, my father called. He didn't waste time pretending to be nice. "Enough with this nonsense. Send the money. We need it." "I don't care what you need," I replied. "Figure it out." He scoffed. "We raised you. We took care of you. And this is how you repay us." "You didn't raise me," I shot back. "You raised Daniel." "I raised myself." A heavy silence. Then, a sharp, biting tone. "You let us down." I smiled. "Good. That means I'm finally doing something right." And I hung up again. Then Daniel called. I had been expecting this one. Unlike my parents, he wasn't the type to yell. He was more manipulative, always the charming one, always the golden boy. He knew how to say the right words to get what he wanted. "Hey, man," he said casually, as if we hadn't just gone a month without talking. "So, I heard about the whole money thing." I said nothing, waiting for him to get to the point. "Look, I get it," he continued. "You're upset. But you can't just cut Mom and Dad off like that. They're struggling." I almost laughed. Struggling? Mom just posted pictures from a spa weekend. Dad just bought a new fishing boat. Daniel hesitated. "Okay, sure, but, they need you. And honestly, so do I. I've been in a rough spot financially." There it was. And that's my problem because I asked. "Come on, man," he sighed. "We're brothers. We're supposed to look out for each other." "Oh, really?" I said. "Did you ever look out for me?" Another silence. "I'm serious, Daniel. Name one time you ever had my back. One time you ever helped me. One time you ever sacrificed for me the way I've sacrificed for you." He had no answer. "Yeah," I said. "That's what I thought." "You're being selfish," he snapped, his tone shifting from friendly to irritated. "No," I said calmly. "I was being selfless for years. Now I'm just done." "Fine," he said, his voice turning cold. "You want to act like this? Don't expect to be invited to family events anymore." I let out a dry chuckle. "Daniel, Be honest. I was never really invited in the first place. And with that, I ended the call. The next few weeks were eerily quiet. No more phone calls. No more guilt tripping. No more fake niceties. I had expected them to try harder, to keep pressuring me until I gave in. But instead, they went silent. At first, I thought they had given up. I was wrong. One evening, my wife and I were having dinner when my phone buzzed. It was a message from my cousin. "Dude, have you seen the family group chat?" I frowned and opened it. The first thing I saw was a long message from my father, sent to everyone in the extended family. It breaks our hearts to say that our eldest son has turned his back on us. After all we have done for him, he has abandoned his family, refusing to help us in our time of need. We raised him with love, and this is how he repays us. A true disappointment. We are lucky to have Daniel, who understands the importance of family. But as for our other son, he is no longer part of this family. My hands clenched into fists. They were trying to shame me. They wanted to turn the whole family against me, to make me look like the villain. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. My wife reached for my hand and squeezed it. "Don't let them get to you." I exhaled slowly. They want a reaction. They're not going to get one. I turned off my phone and placed it face down on the table. Let them talk. Let them spread their lies. I didn't care anymore. I was finally free. At first, I thought the silence meant they had given up. That maybe, just maybe, they had finally accepted that I was done being their personal ATM. I was wrong. It started with small things. My father stopped acknowledging me at family gatherings. If I was in the same room, he would talk to everyone except me. My mother, always the queen of passive-aggressive guilt trips, started posting dramatic messages online about how hard it is when your own child turns their back on you. Daniel, of course, kept playing the golden son. He would call them every day, post pictures of him helping Dad with things around the house, taking Mom out for lunch, all things I had been doing for years without ever getting a thank you. And then, one day, my grandfather passed away. The moment I got the news, I knew what was coming next. The funeral was a grand affair, exactly the kind of thing my grandfather would have wanted. The entire extended family was there, relatives I hadn't seen in years, family friends, even a few people from his old business days. I kept my distance. I wasn't there to make a scene. I wasn't there to rekindle relationships. I just wanted to pay my respects and leave. But my family had other plans. After the service, as everyone gathered at my parents' house, Daniel approached me with a smug grin. "So," he said, swirling his drink, "I guess you heard about the will?" I hadn't. I didn't need to. I already knew what was coming. "Let me guess," I said, keeping my voice even. "Grandpa left everything to you." Daniel smirked. "Not everything. Mom and Dad get a nice share, too." "You?" "Not a penny." I nodded. "Figures. You're not even mad?" he asked, clearly expecting a reaction. I just shrugged. What's there to be mad about? I never wanted his money. And that was the truth. The inheritance wasn't what hurt. It was the principle. The final confirmation that in my family's eyes, I had never been enough. I was about to leave when my mother called out to me from across the room. "Wait, before you go, we need to talk." I sighed but turned around. "About what?" She exchanged a look with my father. He didn't look pleased, but he nodded for her to continue. "We think it's time to put the past behind us," she said, folding her hands like she was making some grand, noble gesture. "Let's start fresh as a family." I stared at her, waiting for the catch. Because there was always a catch. Daniel cleared his throat. "Dad and I were talking, and we think you should reconsider the whole cutting us off thing." There it was. Reconsider? I asked, tilting my head. "Look," my father finally spoke up, "your brother has been doing great things for the family. But times are tough. You've got a stable job, a good salary. It's time for you to step up again." I laughed, right in their faces. They all stiffened. "You really think I'm that stupid?" I said, shaking my head. "Grandpa leaves me nothing. You all cut me out for months, and now suddenly I should step up?" My mother sighed, like she was the one suffering here. "We're not saying you have to do everything. Just help out a little. Families should support each other." I crossed my arms. "Did Daniel help out when I was struggling?" Silence. "Did any of you?" More silence. "That's what I thought," I said. "So here's my answer. No. Not a cent. Not a favor. Nothing." My father clenched his jaw. "We raised you. We took care of you." "You raised me?" I let out a bitter laugh. "No, you raised Daniel. I was just there. And you know what? That's fine. I survived without your help before." But you? You won't survive without mine. I turned to leave. Daniel stepped in front of me. You're really going to do this? He asked, his voice no longer smug, but frustrated. You're going to walk away from your own family over some money? I looked him in the eye. No, Daniel. You walked away from me a long time ago. I'm just finally accepting it. And then I left. For good. Over the next few weeks, the calls came. First from my mother, then from my father, then from Daniel. I ignored them all. They tried everything: guilt, anger, even begging. But I had already made my choice. One day, I got a text from Daniel. Daniel, you're really okay with letting Mom and Dad struggle? Me, they're not struggling. They're just mad that I'm not bailing them out anymore. Daniel, you're being selfish. Me, for the first time in my life, yeah, and it feels great. I never heard from him again. And that was it. For the first time in my life, I was truly free. No more obligations. No more guilt. No more being the one who was always expected to give while getting nothing in return. I wasn't disowned. I was liberated. A year had passed since I walked away. At first, it felt strange, like I was waiting for something to happen, for the other shoe to drop. After so many years of being the one everyone depended on, the silence felt unnatural. I wasn't used to being left alone. But then, slowly, I started to notice the changes. For the first time, my paycheck was mine. I wasn't draining my account every month to cover my parents' bills, to fund Daniel's lifestyle, to make sure everyone except me was taken care of. For the first time, my home felt peaceful. My wife and I started spending real time together, without me constantly being pulled into family drama. My kids. God, my kids flourished. My daughter no longer hesitated before speaking. My son no longer sat in silence, expecting to be ignored. We were finally a family. A real family. And I was finally free. Then, one afternoon, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something in me hesitated. Against my better judgment, I swiped to read the message. Daniel, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I just thought you should know Dad's sick. It's bad. I stared at the words for a long time. I expected a rush of emotions: guilt, sadness, anger. Instead, I felt nothing. Because the truth was, I had already mourned my father. Not in death, but in life. I had mourned the father I wished I had, the one who loved me, who respected me, who saw me as more than just a wallet. But that father had never existed. The man who had raised me had made it clear time and time again that I wasn't his priority, that I wasn't someone he admired or respected. And now that he was dying, I was supposed to suddenly run back? For what? So he could dismiss me one last time? A few days later, Daniel called. I let it go to voicemail. He left a short, clipped message. He wants to see you. That was it. No apology. No acknowledgement of the way they had treated me. Just an expectation, because in their minds, no matter how far I had gone, I would always come back when they called. I deleted the message. I didn't respond. And life went on. A few months later, my father passed away. I didn't go to the funeral. Some people would call me heartless for that. Maybe I was heartless. Or maybe I had just learned to put myself first. For the first time, I wasn't thinking about what was expected of me, about what I should do to keep the peace. I was thinking about my family, about my well-being, about all the years I had spent sacrificing for people who had never sacrificed for me. I didn't owe him anything. Not a visit. Not forgiveness. Not even a goodbye. And I wasn't going to pretend otherwise. After the funeral, Daniel reached out one last time. Daniel, you didn't even show up. You really are selfish. Me, I learned from the best. I blocked his number after that. And that was it. The final chapter. The last loose thread cut. I thought I would feel regret, that I would second-guess myself. But I didn't. If anything, I felt lighter. Like I had finally shed the last weight of my past, the last tie to a family that had never truly been mine. My family wasn't them. It was my wife. My kids. The people who actually loved me. And I would never let them feel the way I had. I would never let my daughter feel unseen. Never let my son feel like an afterthought. I would never make them feel like they had to earn my love. Because that's what real family is. And for the first time in my life, I finally had won.